Afternoon, everyone. My name's Ben. I'm the Director of Membership and Registrations at BCS. And first of all, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Absolute pleasure to have you. Welcome to all those, this is going to sound weird for people in the room, welcome to all those who are in London office today. But also welcome to our Zoom and our YouTube streamers in as well. And you're welcome at any point to wave at our Zoom and YouTube streamers at the moment, but I'm not sure they can see you anyway. So I'm going to kick off just with a couple of questions, if that's okay. Who is here today because they wanted to meet some new people? Just show of hands, please. A few. Who's here because you were thinking there's something in this content that might make me be able to do my job better? A lot more. And anyone here today because it's Thursday afternoon, nothing else to do, missing the cricket? Anyone? No, excellent. So as Director of Membership and Registrations, membership is obviously massively important. And I love it that we've got people here today who go out every day looking to be better at their roles. And it's really important that we're investing in knowledge and time and all the things that you do every day. So I just want to acknowledge our membership and what you do for us and how you engage with us. So thank you very much for being members and being part of this community and being part of this learning. It's much appreciated. We've got a bit of a different event on, and I know we often talk about AI and cyber and different IT-related subjects. And we had the conversation about, do we need to do something around soft skills, which we're trying to rebrand as human skills, if that's okay, because soft skills doesn't really feel like it means anything to anyone. So we wanted to do an event because what we were hearing from our communities was, we've got really great ideas, but no one seems to listen to us. We always get missed when we get to our stakeholders. Does anyone sympathise with that? I hope you are sympathising, otherwise I don't know why you'd be here. So good, excellent. So what we wanted to do is just take a different tact. And we've got some fantastic speakers this afternoon who will help us hopefully, not hopefully at all, Vicky. We have speakers who will help us to make sure those pitches, those storytelling events can give us more traction with our senior management. Does that sound like a good deal, yeah? Excellent. England are 116 for 4, for those not online. And if it's in, Australia 116 for 4, sorry Stuart, that's a very good point. So it's not a bad morning so far, but I'm going to leave that and pass over to Jenna. Jenna's a communication and pitch expert who's going to kick us off, and I'm really looking forward to her presentation. Over to you, Jenna.
Thank you very much. Don't need that microphone. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. It's awesome to be here today. I am Jenna Dominique, and as Ben kindly said, I'm a communications and pitch pro, but I use that word very loosely. My background is in broadcast journalism, so television and radio was sort of my career back in the day. I didn't quite fancy it to carry on, and now I focus on those skills, helping people like yourselves, individuals, entrepreneurs, businesses, teams, to ultimately pitch better, which is what we're focusing on today. Now, we're going to kick off with a quiz, and for anyone that's got good attention to detail, might know what's coming up, because some of the slides may have shown on the screen while you were sitting here today. But bear with me and play along. So if you do get the question right, not through your own knowledge, but because you saw it on the screen, I don't know that. That's absolutely fine. So you have got some Post-its on your seats. Just a peace of mind for all of you. The colours don't mean anything. I'm not going to ask the pink ones to stand up or the yellow ones to do a dance. That's not what this is about. But we are going to start with a quiz. So the first question, and the way that we're going to do this quiz is a fastest finger first style activity. And if you are joining us online, please do join in as well. You might not have the colourful Post-its, but you can still hold up your pieces of paper. So I want you to write down the answer on one piece of your Post-it. And when you've got that answer, I want you to hold it up in the air. And I will try my best to find who is the winner. And we'll continue this for half an hour. I'm joking, it's only a really short quiz as we go along. Okay, so you ready for the first one? So the first one is a fill in the blank. I'm going to stand over here and hope that most of you can see it. I'll read it out as well. So fill in the blank, fastest finger first, write the answer down. It'll be one word, and then raise it in the air to see who wins. Okay, Mary had a little what? I think you might have won there. Can you read it out? Did you know that answer, or did you see it on the screen earlier? You knew the answer. Good. Okay, we've got another one. You might have seen this on the screen already, so if you didn't quite get it, well done, everyone got it. But if you wasn't first, you've got another opportunity. It was indeed lamb. Next one, fill in the blank. Everyone ready? Fastest finger first, you're ready to go. When you tell a lie, your what gets longer. Over at the back here, I think your name's Alex. Nose gets longer. How do we know that? Pinocchio. Okay, you can kind of see there's a bit of a storytelling theme coming up for this session. Let's go with the next question. This isn't a fill in the blank, this is a different one, so that one was indeed nose. Next one, what's easier to remember, a statistic or a story? Oh, what's your name, sir? Chris, flying in there. Andrew, nearly. It is a story. Did anyone else have statistic as easier to remember? And I'm going to come into why stories are easy to remember shortly. Don't worry, only 2 more questions to go and then we'll finish this game. Okay, this one's a true or false one, so you can probably write true or false on one post-it and then hold the right one up that you think. But true or false, our brains process visual images faster than text. I think you got it there, sir. What did you say? True. Everyone else had true? Yes. Next question. They'll be very interested to see who gets the closest one here. It was true. How much faster? How many times faster do our brains process visual images faster than text? 50. Any takers on 50? 10? Anyone else? 10, 60,000 times. And I have references to back this up. So 60,000 times our brains process visual images faster than text. I just want you to hold that thought as we go through the next half an hour or so and just go through this storytelling, pitching element. Because you might be thinking some of the pictures and the slides you put together maybe need to be more visual than text heavy. And we'll come on to some of these tips as we go through. So that's what today, for me, is all about. In this initial session, it's about bringing stories into your pitches, really bringing the ideas that you have to life and making as much impact and having the influence over your stakeholders as best as possible. Because you've all got brilliant ideas, so why are some of them not landing? And I'm hoping some of the tips today will help you to do that. So this is what my sort of approach is what kills a great idea. And there's one key thing that often comes up in terms of killing great ideas, and that's this. We get very bogged down in detail. Exactly the noise I wanted to hear at that moment, because it's very true. We get really bogged down in detail and we forget about the vision. If we can make sure we're focusing on the vision of our idea, not so much the detail, that's going to put us one step ahead to that influential opportunity we want. So I want you to be thinking about every idea that you have to make it this, a very desirable opportunity. And these stand for 3 key things, which are hopefully going to be easy to remember. But you want every idea to seem like a very desirable opportunity to your stakeholders. And these are the 3 pitch points. Whenever you're putting your pitch together, whenever you're thinking about pitching your idea to a stakeholder, think about the vision, the detail, not too much detail, I'll come on to that, and then the outcome. So we're going to go through each of these 3 in a little bit more detail, just to bring this to life. And the vision piece is really where the storytelling comes in. So what we're going to go through are 3 story types that you could use when you're putting your pitches together to start bringing these ideas to life. And those 3 story types, you'll find that some of these resonate more than others, depending on the idea, depending on the impact you think your ideas are going to have, but hopefully you'll resonate with at least one of them. So these are the 3 story types to tell the story. You've got your customer story, your team story, and your business story. I'll keep going side to side because I know I'm blocking your vision. I do apologize. So your customer story, team story, and business story. Now, the customer story ultimately, as you might expect, focuses on the end user, the client of your business. So what's the impact that that has? The team story is more internal. It focuses on the internal processes that you as a team, that other departments might be using to execute their jobs. And then the business story focuses on the wider company as a whole. So let's go through these in a bit more detail. And as I say, you'll start to resonate maybe more with one or the other. Maybe you've all got this idea in your head that you're pitching soon or you're putting forward to a stakeholder that you might think, actually, this might work. So let's go through this customer journey. And I've got a template for each of these, and they're very similar. So bear with me, and hopefully they're going to be quite easy to remember. But you will hopefully get the recordings beyond this as well. So your customer story starts like this. Imagine customer X. So you decide what customer you want to focus on for your story. It might be your biggest client as a business. It might be an individual client. You decide who it is. So you're painting the picture in the stakeholder's mind who it is you're focusing on. Imagine customer X. Right now, they are experiencing, attempting, using. You fill in the blanks depending on what's relevant to your idea, but give them the current situation. Right now, this is what they're focused on, or this is what they're struggling with, this is what they're attempting to do. Then you bring in a little bit of a question and this vision area of what if? What if they could halve the time it takes them to do this particular task? What if they could have all of this information accessible at one click? And I'm really giving some very broad examples here, but hopefully you can see where I'm going with it. What if they could do this? And that's where you start to bring in your idea. This is what I'm proposing. So you focus on the vision first, then we can go into some of the detail, but not too much detail, and I'll keep coming back to that point afterwards. And this is how it would look, and then you go into the detail after that. Hopefully that's all making sense, and we're going to go into that team story now as well. Similar approach, and this is where that might be an internal process, or it might be an external process that you want to change, but think about X process. Think about how we do this. Think about how we put this product together, how we, the back end of it, you can tell I'm not technical, I do apologize, I'm really trying, but think about a process that you use. Then you go into the current state. Currently, this is how it operates. Currently, this is what is done. This is how the team works. If we could do Y, then it would impact Z. So if we could do this, it's going to impact this. So again, you're focusing on this vision before you go into, this is what I'm proposing and the detail. Kind of see where I'm going with this. And then the final one is this bigger business idea, this bigger business story. Because if you've got a stakeholder who is more aligned with that bottom line, or maybe it's this bigger impact that you're going to have, this might be the story to focus on. We pride ourselves on X at this company. Y is important, but what if there was a way to do Z? I love letters of the alphabet, as you can probably tell, but you can fill in the blanks here as well. What if there was a way to do Z? This is what I'm proposing, this is how it works. And it sounds really simple, but just think about flipping the narrative. So you're focusing on this vision first, you're bringing in a story to bring it to life, whether that's through your customer, whether that's through the team, internal process, or through a business as well. And if you've got any thoughts or ideas that are in your mind that you're about to pitch, feel free to sort of pop your hand up and we can hash out the idea and example as well as we go through today. More than happy for this to be an interactive session. But hopefully that makes sense, and this is where that story piece comes in. Just some nods or raise of hands. Does this feel like it might be helpful in a story context? Think about it. And what's great about this is that you might be thinking, well, this takes 30 seconds, a minute to pitch. Great. Often your stakeholders don't have loads of time to listen to the full impact, the full details of what it is you're putting forward. So if you can capture their attention and in a few minutes get them to think, wow, that would be great. Now tell me how it works. That's what you want to do in terms of that capturing that moment. Okay. So then we go into the detail, which many of us love that detail. I love going into detail on things, but sometimes we go into detail too much. So we've got some activities coming up to think about how you can condense that detail, keep it high level, and still keep your stakeholders engaged. Because often, this is where we get lost. We don't keep things simple. We struggle to remove the tech from the idea, which might fly over stakeholders' heads. And maybe we don't focus on that key information. So these are 3 things to think about when you're putting together the detail at the how does this work, or how would this idea be implemented when you're pitching it. And there's going to be a little bit of an activity here, so I'd love for you to work in 2s or 3s on this, just a heads up as we go through this, because it's going to be something to bring this to life and put it in a bit more context. Okay, let me come back to that. So I'm going to give you an example first, but what you're going to see on the screen is a description of a business. And it's quite a long-winded description of a business or a company that exists. And I want you, with your partner or in 3s, to come up with the shortest possible sentence that describes the business. Does that make sense? You're going to take the detail that you see on the screen and come up with the shortest possible sentence to describe what that business does. Now, I'll give you an example to start with. I mentioned at the start I work with a range of different clients, but a lot of them are entrepreneurs and startups. So I worked with this particular organisation earlier this year, and they had a description of what they did on their slide deck. And this is what it said, and this is what it looked like. Here we go. We propose a new AI-enabled approach to medical ultrasound examinations that dramatically decreases cognitive load, allows sonographers to focus purely on the patient, and increases efficiency as well as improve pickup of abnormal scans. Now, I'm not in the medical industry, but even if I was, I think I'd read that and think, it's not really engaging me. It's not giving me that hook that we spoke about that story might give. So I worked with them and we came up with a draft, and this is what we then came up with. Not perfect, it could probably be even shorter, but this is what it translated to. A pregnancy ultrasound that halves examination times and detects missed abnormalities. Took me a while to find that information in the previous description, but that ultimately is what this business is trying to do. So I'm going to hand it over to you now. You've got 2 examples coming up to work with your partners or in your threes to think about that shortest possible sentence. This hopefully gives you a bit of a flavour for what that looks like. The first one, and you can guess what the company is, although there's no prizes for that. You can keep the colourful post-it maybe. Here we go. We are an app-based transportation platform that connects someone wishing to be taken to a destination with a driver to get them there without having to pre-book or having to give directions. And there also isn't a need to use cash or have cash to pay. What do we think the company is, just out of interest? It is Uber. Could have been Bolt, but it's Uber, because that's the one we all know. So that's your challenge, is to come up with the shortest possible sentence to describe what Uber does. I'm going to give you 1 minute to do that. So in your pairs or in your threes, and then we'll come back together. For those joining online, please do it yourselves, and then we'll come back together in 1 minute. Okay, off you go. Sorry if you can't see it. 30 seconds to go. Oh yeah, can do actually. Yeah, if there's some there. Yeah, perfect. Thanks. Okay, 10 seconds. Start to wrap up those sentences. Don't worry if it's not perfect. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Best audience for getting you to go into silence, by the way. That was really great. Okay, so I would love to hand this over to you, and I know we've got some online examples coming through as well, which we will come to shortly. Is anyone happy to share their sentence that they came up with to describe Uber in the shortest possible moment? Feel free to wave that colourful post-it in the air. Yes, I can tell, Chris, you want to go for it.
Yeah, cashless on-demand journeys.
Cashless on-demand journeys. I'll take that round of applause. Pretty good, yeah? Like cashless on-demand journeys. If you see my example, you might want to be up here because it's shorter than what I came up with. Yes, over to you.
Pretty much the same. It's a
Cashless on-demand taxi service, to make it that little bit more specific as well. Okay, interesting. Yep, go for it. Transport you from A to B in the most efficient way. Yep, quite like that. That's interesting. Can we go to some of the ones online? Uber provides transportation. And the thing is, because there is some key information that we can afford to miss out if we want to. So there was the element of no cash. There was the element of not having to give directions. There was the element of getting you from A to B, having this transportation, driver arrives at your door. So there was a few key information that the person online, congratulations for doing that, still feels a little bit wordy. And mine's definitely a little bit wordy, so I know you're anticipating this amazing sentence that's going to come up on the screen. I don't think we're going to see that. But this is what I came up with. Get anywhere, on time, without giving directions or cash. What do we think? Does it deserve a round of applause? No? Okay, there we go. We got one. I think Chris's team probably got the succinctness of it, but an amalgamation of all of you. So we've got one more to go with, one more opportunity to rein it in and get it back. Okay, here we go. We are, bear with me, an internet portal that incorporates a search engine and a directory of worldwide websites organized in a hierarchy of topic categories. It provides both new and seasoned web users the reassurance of a structured view of hundreds of thousands of websites and millions of web pages. What business or company do we think this is? Yeah, who said Yahoo? It was actually Yahoo. But we're not getting into detail today, are we? So it doesn't matter. Okay, so same again, 1 minute in your groups. Try to come up with the shortest possible version of this company. 1 minute, off you go. Thirty seconds. Ten. Oh, my voice went funny then. 9. 5. 4. 3, 2, 1. Oh, we've got someone off the mark here. I'm going to see if there's anyone else that wants to share their sentence first. Right, does anyone want to share the sentence that they came up with? Yes, Alex, go for it. Search everything. A mic drop moment there. 2 words. Interesting. Better than my attempt. Really good. Round of applause for Alex. Love that. Anyone got any takers that they might have used more words but think it's more powerful than search everything? Yeah, go for it. So takes into account some of the stuff and the key information we've got in here. Interesting. Any online ones that we want to share just out of interest? Yep, the globe in your palm. We've gone like, the creative marketing side here. That was interesting. Yeah, final one.
How about helping you navigate the World Wide Web?
Helping you navigate the World Wide Web, so it does what it says on the tin. All really good. So again, everyone should have got a round of applause. The first person always gets the round of applause. Apparently, this is what I came up with. More words than find anything, but find the information you're looking for online in seconds. I don't think that deserves a round of applause, so you don't have to do what you did before. That's fine. Thank you for the petty applause. That's lovely. But you might be thinking, okay, what has this got to do with my pitches? It's a fun activity, and feel free to just look at company descriptions and do this in your own time. It's really quite a fun thing to do, as you found out. But the reason why I've done this is because so often we get bogged down into the detail. All of the descriptions that you saw of those businesses, to that person, was relevant to include in that description. But they went over our heads. It was too much, too overwhelming, too confusing. The ones that you all came up with, better than the ones on the screen, much more to the point, much more impactful. So when you're thinking about pitching your ideas, you're starting with that big vision. Story doesn't have to take long, but you're capturing their attention. Then you're going into, so how does this work? And you're keeping it really concise. You're removing that tech and that detail that might go over their heads, and you're just finding the most simplest version to explain what it is that you're doing. So apply this to your pitch ideas and really try to strip it back to talk in their language, which leads really nicely into what Vic's going to talk about later in terms of making sure the language you're using actually resonates, because everyone's going to interpret vision and detail differently as well. Okay, then that final piece of that puzzle, that very desirable opportunity, vision, detail, outcome. I'm not going to spend loads of time on this, but just make sure when you are pitching, you're ending on a high. You're looping it back to this overall impact and outcome that it's going to have for the customer, for the team, for the business, whatever story you've gone with. So just think about what's the overall impact. How are you getting someone from A to B? Our customer, by doing this, our customer is going to be going from this to this. By implementing this idea, our team are going to be going from this to this. Our business is going to experience this. So really try to loop it back. So you're ending on that high, and then you're feeding into the questions, which is then when you can go into a little bit more detail once your stakeholder starts thinking, right, I get it. I love the vision. I love what you're doing with this idea. Tell me a little bit more about X. Then you decide what detail you need to give them. So that's the process that I want you to be thinking about and taking away today. But we're not finished there. I've still got a bit more time with you. Because a compelling story, your vision, and having really clear content, the detail, is all well and good, but there's something missing. Does anyone know what's missing from this? You've got a great story, you've hooked them in, you've got clear content that makes sense. What's missing? Outcome, potentially. I'd say that probably comes into the whole story and narrative. But think about when you're pitching. Yeah. Visualization links really nicely to what it is, how you deliver. So how do you bring it to life visually? So maybe you thought of that stat, 60,000 times faster that we process visual images. But how you deliver your content is actually what makes the impact. I often use a restaurant analogy when you've got a plate of food. I used to work in the events industry. I shadowed the chefs one day and was fascinated not just by how much effort went into the ingredients of the dishes, but actually by how much effort went into the presentation of those dishes. And I use that analogy that the ingredients is what's in your pitch, the content, but the actual outcome and how it looks, how it tastes, all of that is how you deliver it. And that's not from an aesthetic point of view, it's from an impact point of view. How are you using your body language, your voice, all of these different factors to deliver it in an engaging way? And visuals do come into it, but we'll come on to that shortly. So there's 4 areas that I want you to be thinking about when you're practicing, hopefully, that word practice, that when you finish your slides, done, have a cup of tea, beer, glass of wine, I'm finished. Leave time to practice, or at least talk it through with someone and really think about how you're delivering it. 4 key things to think about. The first one is your mindset. So if I said to you, and you don't have to give me a figure now, but if I said to you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel when you pitch your idea to a stakeholder? And it probably will change every time you pitch, how you're feeling that day, what the day's been like, how confident you are maybe with the content. But if you're in that sort of 1 being really nervous, this is my worst nightmare, 10 being absolutely give me a boardroom full of executives and I will pitch my heart out. If you're in that sort of 1 to 6 category, think about what it's going to take for you to get that confidence up. And it could be something really practical. Go for a run, do some exercise, listen to some music, practice, go through your pitch with someone else. What's going to get your confidence level higher? Because when you're confident, you show it. And that comes across when you're pitching really impactfully. The next thing is your body language. So whether you're standing in a boardroom or whether you're sitting down one-to-one with someone, still think about what your body's saying. Are you sitting back with your arms folded, or are you sitting forward, open, really engaged? Normally those sort of sitting back now are like, oh yeah, I'm engaged, I'm ready. I can't see you online. But body language is really key. Make eye contact. Don't have to stare the person out, but just look engaged and be present and be there with them. Think about your voice. Are you pausing when you've got some great stories to tell? When you tell them what the detail is they need to know, high-level stuff? Are you picking up the pace to motivate them, or are you slowing it down when you're going through some more complex information? And then finally, don't underestimate the opportunity to interact. It might be that story starts with a question. Who's our most important customer? Who's our most important client? Right, let's think about them. This is what they're doing at the moment. This is where we could go. It might change around. What's the most important value for our business? Right, exactly. This is what's important, but what if we could do this? So again, ways to hook and ways to interact, so you're not just talking at this person for 5-10 minutes. And then while I start to wrap up, because I am short on time, just a couple more tips on what else kills a great idea. Now, the slide that you're going to see shortly is based on how many times I see this type of slide, should be the most powerful slide of every slide deck. So I see people use this technique time and time again. I'm hoping the anticipation's really rising now to see this really fantastic slide. Are you ready for it? That. You can read it in your own time. I'll read it out as well. But often, the whole point of this is that if you've got reams and reams of text on your slides, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. We're not going to focus on it, or what we are going to focus on is reading what's on the slide and not listening to me. How many of you are reading that now and thinking, Jenna's speaking, but I'm not quite listening to her? So we need to be getting rid of text and putting more visuals in. You'll see how I've visually represented a lot of the stuff today. You'll probably see that in other presentations as well. The other thing that kills a great idea, diagrams or charts that have so much detail in or we can't understand them or read them. They might make sense to you, they don't make sense to your stakeholders. They might if you go through them and you've got half an hour, 40 minutes, 1 hour, 90 minutes to take them through it, but they don't have that time. So it's pointless using things that are confusing, strip it back. So what you've got are 6 steps to success, and this is the recap summary that I want you to be taking away. Remember the vision, your very desirable opportunity. Show the vision, keep the details simple, and make sure you focus on that outcome. And then on the other side, what we focused on, use visuals, not text. How many times faster do our brains process images than text? 60,000 times faster. Practice your pitch, please. It makes an impact. And also make it engaging in those visuals and your body language. So those are your 6 steps for success. I'm more than happy to connect afterwards and have a chat. I know we haven't got time for questions, but hopefully that's given you some tips to take away. Thank you so much. Stop the mic.
Thanks, Jenna. Was that all good? Everyone enjoy that? That was useful? Fantastic, fantastic. BCS, as a lot of you guys know, do over 200, nearly 300 events a year. So while I fill for a minute while we're changing lapel mics, I thought the question that sometimes happened in events is, and I know it's probably going through your head, do I get the slides? Do I get the slides? How many people are thinking, do I get the slides during that front? You're all thinking, do I get the slides? Even better than that, BCS will be launching soon, and when I say soon, I mean August, September time, our BCS Discover platform. So that platform is where we keep our CPD assets. I call it membership on demand. And that will mean that things and events like this, we can keep recordings of, we can put them in one place, so you can find them and go back and look at the presentations, the assets, the videos, and all that recording. We hope as we move forward that will make part of what will be called your learning passport, all the things that you've been learning and that you can contribute in terms of your employment and your own CPD. So we're really excited about the launch of BCS Discover, which we'll be sharing with you over the next couple of months. So while I'm waiting, and Vicky, all good dish? Yes, cool, excellent. We've got Vicky O'Fowler, who's a queen of behaviours. So we want to keep the momentum going in terms of the storytelling and how to pitch to our stakeholders and our customers. And I'm going to hand over to Vicky. Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you very much. Again, I don't need the hand one. Got something stuck on my lapel here. Fabulous. Thank you, Jenna, for yours, because that's a great way to get us all to come in and think about, right, this is really great. So I'm now thinking about how I'm going to tell some great stories, and I've got all of this kind of stuff. But what we've got to do to start with is we kind of got to decode our language. Where am I clicking that towards? There you go. Fabulous. I have 3 slides, so I'm more I get bogged down. Slides are detail for me. I don't do those. But we need to decode the language, because if we're going to tell stories, what language do I tell it in? Well, we're going to kind of all assume that we're going to be speaking in the English language. We're here in London. I'm assuming that online as well. If not, speaking your mother tongue for your language, which is great. But absolutely, we need to think about, what does that language look like? Because we all use different words. And as Jenna had said, actually just body language, that can be different as well. How do I know that I'm engaging with the person that I'm speaking to? How do I know that I am talking in their language? Well, first of all, I'm going to say we need to look in the mirror, don't we? We need to look in the mirror at our own language, because we go along life in what I would call autopilot. Yeah, you are the way you are. We're not going to change who we are. We're autopilot. You tend to find that the people that you are friends with, the people that you hang around with, are probably very similar to you. You don't have to think about how you get on. You don't have to think about how you engage with each other. You just naturally get along with these people. Even if you go back to your school days, yeah, your school friends were people probably very similar to you. And there were probably people at school that you thought, they're not my type, I'm not hanging out with them. No problem. We're all different. And that's one thing that I talk about. So the basis of my business, the Queen of Behaviours, is about personalities. I use a system called DISC. There's plenty of other systems out there, but I use the system called DISC. And what I want to do is get you to understand what your strongest style is. And I'm just going to ask a very simple question. So you think about work, you think about school and you hung around with your friends, and then you came into this thing called work, didn't you? And there's a whole load of people. And you probably think to yourself, you're walking around going, yeah, rude person. Yeah, oh God, showy and unprofessional. Oh, a little bit cold. Oh, so, God, they won't shut up. They want detail. We're all different, aren't we? And what it is about personalities is there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. Yeah, it's not about labeling people. It's not about putting people in boxes. And it certainly isn't an excuse for bad behaviour. What it is, it's about looking in the mirror, understanding your style, so that you can flex and adapt, so that you can communicate with other people. And I always say that, the best journey that you can do when you're in the workplace is to meet somebody halfway. Except when you're pitching. The better journey you can make is to completely morph into their style. Now, we don't need to do this all the time, and it's kind of sometimes can be a bit exhausting, and I know I find it exhausting. Actually, just being me is quite exhausting sometimes. But what I do find is that actually the more I morph into someone when I'm trying to sell them my ideas, actually the more I can become that person, the better the rapport is, the better the response is, and the better the results are. So just a show of hands now, if I said to you, if we were just having a little bit of networking afterwards, and I asked one question, would you say that you were outgoing or reserved? Now, I know there's going to be some of you who will be like, oh, do you know what, Vic, that'll depend. Yeah, depend on who you're with and where you are. Your environment has an absolute impact on how you behave. But think of yourself as you came into here today. So can I have a show of hands for those people that would say that they were outgoing? Yeah, okay. And then a show of hands for the others that would say that they are reserved? Okay. Even your body language from the stage here will show me outgoing. Yep, that's me. I'm outgoing. And the reserved people are going, yeah, reserved. Really don't need to make a fuss. Certainly don't need to bring attention to myself. I'm reserved. And that's fine. There's no right or wrong. It's just understanding and recognising who we are. So what I'm going to get, hopefully you've all got some pen and paper or something you can make some notes on, even if it is the little bit of lovely post-it note that Jenna gave you. I'm going to get you to do an exercise, and hopefully my Zoomers and YouTubers, whichever way round you are, because I forget, because I don't do detail, you'll be able to write these down. So we're going to find out what your strongest personality style is. And we're a blend of all of them, but I want you to find out what your strongest one is. So what I want you to do first of all, and hopefully you can see on the screen there, is just to draw a line. Look at that. It was quite straight for a freehand on computer. Draw a line down the centre. Or you can think, you'll know you can make a visual one, yeah. Exactly. And then what I want you to do is put a 0 in the middle and then a 10 at either end. And I'm going to ask that question again then. For those of you who said that they were outgoing, kind of mark yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. How outgoing are you feeling? And on the top of the line there, put a little cross. And if you said that you were reserved, again, on a scale of 0 to 10, how reserved you are, and put a little cross. That says outgoing underneath where it tells you how many people are watching online. Clearly I didn't do the detail there, did I? Didn't find out if there's going to be anything else on my screen. Now what I'd like you to do is draw a line through the middle. So you've got a horizontal and a vertical axis. Again, put a 10 at either end. And now I want you to answer the question of whether you are people-focused or whether you are task-focused. And how can you think about that? Well, when you get to the end of the day, do you reflect on the people interactions that you've had? The conversations, the meetings of people, the phone calls that you've had, the random conversation with a person in the queue. Yeah, I know some of you are thinking about, why would I have a random conversation with a stranger? Some of us just enjoy that, and some of us don't. Okay? And I mean, if you came into the office, are you the type of person that walks into the office, someone calls your name and goes, Vic, how are you? And go, oh yeah, hi, how are you? And you get distracted by it. Or do you get to the end of the day and reflect on the tasks, things that you have completed, things you've ticked off your to-do list, emails sent, projects done, books read, tasks that you've done. And if you came into the office and someone called your name, you might acknowledge them, but you'd think, actually, no, I've got workload to do. That's not to saying that you're not sociable, but you'll do your tasks first, and then you'll get a coffee afterwards. So people or tasks. And again, on a scale of 0 to 10, how people-focused you are, or how task-focused you are. So you should then have a cross on both axes, both the vertical and the horizontal axis. And then what I'd like you to do, where those two crosses are, is to just draw another cross so that we can see which of the 4 quadrants that you have. Okay? Have we all done that? Excellent. I'm going to just assume you've all done that online. Excellent. I'm going to introduce you to the world of DISC, the world of my world. And there's colours here and letters. But what I want to do, so your cross is going to be somewhere in there, isn't it? So just so that I can get an understanding of you as an audience, can I have a show of hands for those that put the cross in the top? So the outgoing task focused in the D. There they are, punching through the roof, sir. Okay, anyone else? We just got a couple of Ds in the room. Yeah, okay, a couple of Ds there, marvellous. So staying outgoing, and over on the people side of it, the I, the yellow. Can I have a show of hands for those in the yellow box? Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. And then staying on the people side, but coming down to the reserved side. So who has a cross in the S box? Lovely, okay, thank you. And then finally coming over to the C style, so reserved and detail, task focused, okay? And again, you can see the body language. The outgoing people were there. They were straight up with their hands. But the more reserved people are, I'll put my hand up in a moment. Because I need to think about that. Because one of the things straight away between outgoing and reserved people is the thought process. So imagine when you're pitching, and imagine you're thinking to yourself, right, I've got my pitch, I've got my story, I've got everything, and I need to ask some questions, and I've got my body language right. First of all, I've got to think to myself, are they outgoing or reserved? Because if I ask them a question to get their buy-in, are they going to internalise their thoughts, think about it, and then give me an answer? Or are they an outgoing person and they are just basically going to vomit their thoughts at me? Yeah. Because what we need to do is we also need to remember that if we are outgoing and we've asked a question to somebody who is reserved, that when they're internalising that thought process, there's going to be what I'd like to describe as a gap or a little bit of silence. And outgoing people like to try and fill it because it's silence. Oh my God, that's scary. So what I'll do is I'll fill it by reframing the question and I'll just dump it again. Unfortunately, the reserved person is thinking, well, hold on, I haven't answered this yet, and you've just reframed it. And then the more outgoing you are, the more silence becomes because they're kind of a bit shocked. So you'll reframe it again and re-dump it. To which point, you've lost your reserved person because they're thinking, what's the point? What is the point? You're not even letting me do the thought process. So we just need to do that. A little tip, if you're reserved and someone asks you a question and you do want to think, actually say, great question, let me think about that. And just that little word, let me think about that. Not even say today, great question. Oh, let me think. Let me think. Tell somebody there is going to be a gap of silence that does not have to be filled. Yeah. And if you're a really outgoing person and you ask a question, just learn to count to 5 in your head, quietly. Silence is golden. Doesn't have to be filled. So what does this mean, though? So if I'm going to give you some really great descriptive words to understand this, but when you're pitching to someone, now we are a blend of all of these, yeah? This isn't an excuse, like I say, for labelling, putting people in boxes, and certainly not for bad behaviour. But if I'm pitching to someone that I know has got a strong red D type, what language do I need to use? Because I've got my story, yeah? Jen has helped you create your story. I've dropped some of the other stuff, so now I'm going to actually pitch it. Oh dear, I've got a red D star, and D star stands for dominant. They're dominant, they're quite demanding, they're doers, they're direct, they're decisive. Yes, they're quite loud as well. And actually, suddenly, my confidence has suddenly shrunk back down here. No. What they want is for people to be confident. They want you to stand up and be confident with what it is that you're going to deliver. Because then you're stepping into their zone. So how can I do? What do they want? They don't have time. Yeah. D stars just are on the go. Be bright, be brief, be gone. Yep, they're out there. So I have got to make sure that what I'm delivering, that story that I'm going to delivering, where's the results on the bottom line? How is this going to impact the business? Where are the goals focused? How quickly can I implement this? And how quickly can I see the results? Because that's me. I'm dominant, I'm demanding, I'm a doer. I want you to come into my space and be like me. What they might do is challenge you. Yeah? They don't want the how. They don't want the detail of your great idea. What they want is the results that your great idea has got. Forget the how. You start doing the how, and if they're interested, they might start listening. But have you ever been in a meeting where someone does this to you? Yeah? Or clicks a finger? I mean, that's just downright rude to me. But I've been in those meetings where you're pitching someone and they just go like that. You're just going, what? And it's an automatic reaction for them because they're just trying to move you along. Yeah, I'm interested, but come on, move. Yeah, and if you don't move quick enough, you'll lose them. And then suddenly they're on their phone or they've walked out in the meeting room and you're like, oh, I've lost them. You've got a split second with these people to really get that impact in, talk to them, and become the D. So for those of you who said that perhaps they were here in the green S, do you think you could become a red D? A red D demanding? Yeah? D, red, danger. Do not overload with detail, okay, when you're pitching to them. Let's move over. Staying outgoing. Yep, so remember that these are the people that are just going to, sorry to say it, but just vomit questions at you. I kind of feel that word just gets an impact. So eyes, influence. These people are influential, they're inspirational, they're interested in people, they're interactive, they're everywhere. Yeah? We're the ones that want to have a chat. We're the ones that there was networking 20 minutes before the event. I'll get in there half an hour before, might even get some food. Yeah, we want to find out what everyone's doing because I'm interested in other people. So how do I pitch to these people? What are they interested in the products, services, and the great idea that I've got? Well, I want to know how it's going to impact the people. Yeah, again, these are like, I'm not interested in the how. I don't want the detail, but actually, what impact is this going to have on me? And in fact, if you want to build a relationship with me, ask me questions about me. Get me talking about me, because it's all about me. Now, I'm choosing the extremes, though, so for those of you who have said that you're in that box, some of you might not be quite all of that. But I'm kind of like, if you probably hadn't, I'm off the scale over here. So it is all about me, yeah. But it's not, it's about, I want you to tell me stories. Tell me stories of this great idea that you've got and how it's going to work. And actually the stories about how you've used and done something like this for another customer, for another stakeholder. Tell me those stories, because stories for eyes, more than any other colours, really bring it to life. But it's about me. Tell me about that. Not interested in the detail, not the how, yeah? They're interested in how it's going to impact on me. So let's come down here to my little S greens down here on the bottom. Show of hands for the S, the greens. You can put your hands up higher. I promise. I'm not going to make you do anything. Yeah? This is steadiness. These are our supportive people. Yeah? These are our sensitive people. And I don't mean sensitive like as in, ouch, that hurt me. They're sensitive to everyone else's feelings. They make amazing diplomats. They like a steady pace. Yeah? And never, ever underestimate the greens, because that S can also stand for strong and stubborn. And if they're not with you, yep, they'll put their heels in. And they'll put their heels in hard. Yeah? But S's are the ones that I find often are the ones that get overlooked. But what does it mean for me? How do I sell to an S style? What do S styles want? Well, when I said they make great diplomats, it's because they think about the team. It is about the team. How is what you're going to do and what your great idea going to do for the wider team? Yeah? It's not about me up here in the yellow. No, it's about my team. But I also am not interested in the how. I also don't want the detail. Yeah? I want to know how this is going to work for the bigger picture for the team. So that's what you've got to go in with your stories. Big picture, team. So there's a bit of a common thread with all three so far, hasn't it? And I know Jenna said about the detail, and we want to get bogged down into the detail because it's our great idea and we want to give so much to it, but actually 75% of your audience here are not interested in the detail and the how. Yeah? Bottom line results. What's in it for me? What's in it for them? Yeah? And then the C's. Let me have a show of hands for my lovely blue C's. Yeah? And you're the ones that love the detail, aren't you? Yeah? It's the compliant corner. It's the conscientious corner. It's about the detail. The clever corner. Let's get it correct. If a job is worth doing well, it's worth doing well and correctly. So I want to make sure that I have got all the facts and the figure and the data and the information and the analysis and everything else. Actually, some people might see that as a bit of a paralysis of analysis. I don't need all of that. If you, as a C style, are selling to another C style, oh, detailer overload. Absolutely, you can get bogged down by it. You could spend days on it. You could procrastinate about it. You could make the biggest spreadsheet in the world about it. But if you aren't with a C style, and if C is not what I would call above the line, it's not predominant in their profile, cut the detail. Cut the detail. Because what you'd probably find for the C's who want all the detail, they don't want the peoply stuff. No, that's peoply stuff over here. No. Tell me about how it's going to work. Tell me about what it's going to do. Tell me about the impact it's going to have on the bottom line. Don't do all of that, because if the C's go over to that too much, so the D's, they could do this, can't they, in a meeting? Yeah, and a clicky finger, which to me is quite rude. So any D's ever done that in a meeting? No. Ever in your life done it? I'm looking at you, sir, because your hand was first up with the D style. Yes, you have done that, but you now have emotional intelligence and realise that that's rude. But that's okay. That's okay. Eyes, you overload eyes with the detail. Oh dear. And we're not very good at trying to cover that up because we're not very discreet. Yeah? But you can see that. I have to be careful when I do that, whenever I'm standing on stage, because like yawning is infectious, isn't it? There's nothing worse as a speaker when everyone starts yawning. I'm like, oh, damn. S is, if you overload them with detail, they'll probably, because they're people-focused, but they're more reserved, and they'll nod and agree and carry on nodding and agreeing, and then leave the meeting and go, oh, I'm doing that. Yeah. So sometimes come across as a little passive-aggressive because you feel like I don't want to challenge the person, I don't want to offend them. But C's, give them the detail, lapping it up. Give me some more. So we've got to make sure that, first of all, how do I straight away know what type of person it is? How many times do you go into pitch to something and you've never met the person before? Can I have a show of hands? You're going to pitch and you've never met that person before. Okay, that's quite often the case. So where can you do the research to find out what type of person they are? Where can you research on another business person? LinkedIn. Do you know what? You can tell someone's profile on LinkedIn. It's a real giveaway in terms of, oh, are these people outgoing, reserved? Is there a lot of colour in the picture? Yeah. Do they have a brightly coloured background? Actually, let's go and have a look at some of their posts, because we like to stalk on LinkedIn, don't we? You know, put yourself in private mode, go and fill your boots. It's amazing. But obviously, if you're like me, you know, you then have to reel yourself back in and look at the work that you've got to do. But if you look at them, look at their posts. Are they posting things that are very text-heavy? Are they posting polls? Or are they posting videos? Are they doing videos of themselves? Are they putting selfies out there? Can you start now thinking about, well, actually, if I see that someone's doing their own videos and their own selfies, what kind of style would you say that would be? I, absolutely, absolutely, they're I styles. If someone's going to do something perhaps short, sharp and quick, might be some words, there might be a picture, it might be a stat, might be something about the business, telling them how great the business is. What kind of style would you say that would be? Yeah, probably more the red, the D style. But if someone's sharing some good news about the people they work with, they're sharing some good news about other people, kind of what would that tell you? Yeah, absolutely, more S. And if somebody has written a great article and there's some charts in there and there's some facts and some figures and some stats in there, what kind of style? C, absolutely. And we don't think about that on LinkedIn. We don't think about what we're posting. I try and mix it up and do all of that kind of stuff, but actually for me, putting stats and figures and all that kind of stuff, it really exhausts me. You know, I'd rather just get a video and walk around my field and say something random and chuck it out there and, you know, hope is not a strategy, but, you know, someone might connect with me. The thing is, there's all types of people that do what I do, yeah? But people buy people, don't they? And that's what we've got to remember. You've got some great ideas, and you need to make sure that your message gets across. You've got your vision, you're now going to get some stories, and you're going to understand the style of the person that you're talking to, because what I've got to do is to use their language. And it wasn't about the word, it's just about the language that I'm going to use when I'm selling to a different style. What do I need to reflect it on? The D's, what do they want? What are they focused on? Bottom line, end results, absolutely. I's, what are they focused on? What's in it for me? The S's, what's in it for them? Absolutely. And the C's, detail. How is it going to work? Yeah. And so you have got to learn how to become each and every one of these other styles. Not forever, because it is. We're just naturally in our own style. But when I'm going into pitch, I need to focus. What is the... And trust me, you might not be pitching to one person. You might have a whole bank of stakeholders. And oh my God, how do I do that? Okay? But you'll find out from their body language, you'll kind of start knowing, oh, you're the outgoing person. Okay, I'll focus on this when I'm talking to you. Oh, I found my detail person. Great, because I've got to get some detail out there because I need to. So I'll focus on giving that to you. And that way you'll satisfy everybody. They'll all talk with each other. Pitch perfect, would you not say? Okay. I've got a couple of minutes. I'm just going to say, does anybody want to ask any questions? Because to me, the whole big thing is looking in the mirror at your style. What is your natural style? Because when we can learn to recognize, understand, and respect our differences, we can then talk their language. Yes, sir?
Question, observation. I felt I couldn't place myself in one of the two categories. I'm sometimes a people person, sometimes not. I'm a bit of a comedian.
We can all be that, sir.
Right.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. It's what you're naturally at, but you've just got to remember when you're with your peoply people, be more peoply. And then when you're with your more task-focused people, kind of drop the peoply side and...
Interesting, but not easy.
No, it's not easy.
I think I'll continue over coffee.
Okay. And this isn't easy. It's that self-awareness of actually how do I adapt and flex who I am. Don't want you to do it all the time. Yeah. start with the body language. And the body language is a giveaway. Outgoing people have big body language. Yeah, they have big gestures. Yeah, they'll be there first. I've got to not look at Steve because he's just laughing because he's so outgoing himself, isn't he? Look at the way you stand, Steve, you see? So for those of you who can't see him, he's standing in a Wonder Woman pose. You know, look at those kind of body language gestures. You know, the reserved people are probably already sat down. Yeah. And they might come in at the time of the meeting. The outgoing people will probably be there at least a few minutes beforehand. Yeah. We good? We're still good with time? Yeah?
Just wondering, is there, so as a frontline worker new to career, do they start at the bottom left and then to get to chief exec, they tend to go up into the Ds, or do you stay in the same place?
You naturally stay in your strongest style. You don't really change unless you had, you know, some god-awful, you know, brain accident, which takes out your frontal lobe. Your personality style takes them. We adapt and flex, and I would say, like, my strongest style is the yellow, but my red is definitely much stronger since I've been running my own business, because it's had to be. But don't think that everyone that's in red wants to be the boss and the CEO. Yep, they don't. It's just that you probably see them more than anyone that's blue that's the boss and the CEO, because they don't need the limelight. I'm not interested in it. Let someone else do that. Does that answer that? Yeah? Okay, I'll take one more question, if there is any. If not, I'm going to stay here anyway, so if any of you that are perhaps reserved and thinking, I don't want to ask this question in front of everybody, I'll come and find you afterwards and have that conversation. Perfect. Okay.
Thank you very much, Vicky.
Thank you.
So thanks so much, Vicky. That was great. We're going to have a quick 10-minute break, and in keeping with what Vicky was saying, some of you may want to talk to others. Others may not want to talk to others. We will encourage the latter, if that's okay. But have 10 minutes break, and for those online, please do refreshments, whatever you wish to do, and looking forward to join you in 10 minutes' time, if that's okay. Cheers, guys.
That one there?
Well then.
Hi there, we'll be starting again in 2 minutes, please, everyone. If you want to find your seats. We'll be starting again in 1 minute. If you can find your seats, please, guys. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Is everyone well and good? Everyone refreshed, including our friends online. I hope everyone's all good and are back in the room. Hopefully that was useful. You got an opportunity to speak to each other and generally network with each other. I think that's what we call it at the moment. Just coming up, in a minute I'm going to introduce Mark, who's going to be talking to us some more about some other skills, which I'll introduce in a second. And then we've got a panel discussion. For this event, BCS have been working with the Growth Hub and Steve and his team, who you will see around the room. And it's been a great partnership as we get to get some of their knowledge and some of the people that they work with, like Jenna and Vicky and Mark, to really add some value to our community as well. So it's important to acknowledge that. But what we wanted to do is, in part of the panel discussion, is have actual real leaders. People that we might need to pitch ideas to, the people that question some of the decisions we make. I've made them out to be scary. They're not. They're very nice people, and we're looking forward to their insight as well. But before we go to Stuart and Winnie in a panel discussion, Mark is an expert and coach around how we influence leadership. Best-selling author, general guru. Can't wait to hear your content, Mark. Over to you.
Oh, there's nothing like being set up big so that you fall flat on your face, is there? But I appreciate that, Ben. Thank you very much. Well, hello, everyone. Okay, yep, I get the feeling there's quite a lot of greens and blues in the room. Hello, everyone. That's more like it, okay. You might already gather I'm quite red, quite dominant, and quite influential. So I'll be brief, I'll be bright, and I'll be gone, but it is all about me. Okay. All right, well, as Ben said, my name is Mark, and I'm really pleased to have been invited here today to share a few minutes with you. About 20 to 25 minutes. I just wanted to share some thinking, some 3 ideas really. I've had the privilege of running a business called Transform Performance International. Sounds a bit of a mouthful, doesn't it? But you know what, I had a view 25 years ago when we started the business that if I started a business called Change People a Little Bit Limited, I wouldn't get much business. So Transform Performance International was born. But I've had great fun over the last few years working with people in so many different industries and so many different parts of the world. And if there's one thing that I have learned, it doesn't matter what line of business that we're in, it doesn't matter where we sit in the technology function or whatever market we're in, people are people are people. And I think that's come across writ large in the last 2 sessions. So the purpose of my session is in some ways to pull some of the threads together that we heard from Vicky and Jenna, but also I hope to give you an insight into some of the thinking that we share when we work with leaders, people all around the world in whatever industry we are talking about. So without further ado, I'm going to ask you folks to try and put yourself into a state where you're thinking about people who might have been an influence on you at some point in your lives. Who would that person be? Who would that person be? So, as you think about who may have been an influence on you in your lives. And I appreciate I'm a big guy, so I will try and move out of the way of the slides from time to time. As you think about the person or people who've influenced you, just think about this. In a particular situation, do you ever find yourself wondering, I wonder what they would have said? Or, I wonder what they would have done? Or, I wonder how they would have felt? And if you can put yourself into that state, then of course you are already being influenced. And what is interesting about influence is that one of the definitions of the word is that you don't actually have to be present in the room in order to have an influence or a power over someone or something else. That's quite interesting. Because if we hold that hypothesis to be true, what could that mean for the way that we conduct ourselves in our daily business and personal lives? How cool would it be if we could have people thinking, I wonder what Vanessa would say. I wonder what Alina would do. Or I wonder what Alex, top of the class Alex at the back there, I know, I saw you. I wonder what Alex would feel. That's the power of influence. And that's what I help people think about. How can I perform better in my role, not by becoming someone different, but by just sharpening my influencing sword just a little bit to think about how every little bit, day in, day out, I can just be that more powerful influencer. Now, on the screen, I have put a picture of a gentleman called Roger Payne. Has anybody ever heard of Dr. Roger Payne? No. Interestingly, though, I suspect that you may have been influenced by him. Now, the observant ones amongst you will notice that Roger died in 2023. He actually died on June the 10th. So this is fresh and very raw for millions of people around the world. You see, Roger Payne was the father or the discoverer of whale song. Now, you might be thinking, what on earth has whale song got to do with influencing people? Well, let me give you a little more information about that. I was hoping at this point you might actually hear some whale song, but you're not. So those of you in the cheap seats might be hearing something, but the people in the expensive seats here are not. Doesn't matter. Let me have a show of hands. How many people, as you look at that visual image, can actually hear whale song? Every single person practically in the room. That is the influence that Roger Payne had. Did you see what I did there? Oh, I had to think fast there, but I got there. But everybody has got an understanding of what whale song is. 1967. I know I don't look old enough to remember 1967, but I do. But in 1967, Roger discovered whale song, or he made it famous. And here's what he did. He went literally into the ocean and he started to record it. Now, this might sound mundane today, but back then, this was revolutionary. For the first time, what that man did was lift a veil that had been literally hiding these beautiful creatures for thousands of years. It changed the way in which humanity viewed these creatures. Until this point, these creatures had been viewed as the three Bs: blubber, bones, blood. Blubber, bones, blood. What he did was he took their song, their language, and he made it almost accessible to everybody on the planet. And do you know what? So successful was he. the recordings that he made, did you know that they were actually released as an album of whale song in 1970? And to this date, July the 6th, 2023, it is the best-selling recording of the natural world ever. Multi-platinum LP. I'm using the word LP for those of you who remember what an LP is. But, you know, if you don't know what an LP is, look it up, Google it. Okay? Fantastic. That's the kind of influence he had. But the point is this. How did he do it? How did he get to the point where he had this level of influence? And for some reason, my battery is running low. And if somebody could perhaps give me some power on this laptop, it would be great, because I have a feeling it might run out in the next few minutes. Thank you. So, if you are interested in wildlife, anybody here interested in the environment, nature, wildlife? Yes. You may not have known it, but he was the guy who galvanized world opinion. He was the guy who really set the fire under the feet of people who wanted to literally save our world and the beautiful, magnificent creatures within it. That is the power of influence. Now, I hold a belief. If someone can do it, anyone can do it. It's a belief of excellence, as we call it. So I'm going to ask you to think about for just a moment, are you an influential person? Are you that kind of influential person who can actually have an impact even though you may not necessarily be present in the room? Now, I've lost my slides. It doesn't matter, because I get passionate about this, and you can probably tell. Within a few years of Roger doing what he did, the United States passed the Marine Mammal Protection Act. Fantastic. The International Whaling Commission had literally said, we're going to stop this. All right, we all know that some countries didn't fall into place, but over time we all know that they have gradually done so. And those of you in the room who keep up to date will know that only in the last couple of weeks, Japan and Iceland and Norway have announced that even they are going to further reduce the number of whales that they take this season. So even though the man has just died, he's still having that powerful influence even today. Quite incredible, really. Quite incredible. Now, I am reaching the point where I absolutely do need to have some slides. And there is a saying in our industry that you just keep talking until the people backstage get you back on track. So I'm going to just keep talking. You might be saying, well, okay, this is fantastic, great story, Mark, but where does this leave me? Well, here's the thing. I was traveling into London a couple of days after June the 10th. And I was listening to, I'm going to sound awfully intellectual now, the BBC Radio 4 Today program. Anybody listen to that? Oh, good. There's some people who do. That's good. Okay. You're giving away your age again. Okay. All right. So I was listening to the Radio 4 Today program. Why is that significant? They had one of Roger Payne's colleagues on the show. Justin Webb was the interviewer, and he said, look, what is the lasting legacy, or what's the contribution that Roger Payne made to science? And the answer was really interesting. The guy said, look, it wasn't the science per se that he's contributed. What he did was the way he influenced humanity and influenced governments and influenced the world, because what he did was he understood that if you want to be a successful influencer, what you do not do is lead with the data. What you do is you lead with the heart. And this contributor said that's why he understood that the way to save the whale was not through sending reports and analysis and data and all that kind of good stuff about what he discovered about the whale's mating habits. No. The way to influence was to help people understand and to feel those creatures. And this contributor said, Roger Payne's legacy is that he understood that he can make science accessible through the heart. And I thought that was really telling. So, we're getting there. I'm still going to keep going. So if the hypothesis is that, okay, science is good and rationality is good, that's fine. And if the hypothesis is also that you can be more influential if you can lead with the heart, where does this leave us? You see, many of us in this room, as we've already seen, are quite rational in the way we think. Yeah? We can be quite, I don't know, the world of technology, you know, I come from that technology world as well. We can be quite binary. You know, we can be quite logical. We can be, it's on or it's off. Yeah? It's right or it's wrong. It's black or it's white. It's up or it's down. It's in or it's out. That's it. Obvious, isn't it? Yeah? We're getting there. But you see, what we know is that if you're going to be rational all the time, then you're missing a trick. So, when we go with the heart, we can probably make ourselves just that little more flexible, and that's the key. Now, I don't have my slide here to now be able to share with you what I wanted to say, but I'm just going to ask Sam, how close are we, Sam, to saving my neck?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes. All right. So let me just stop a moment and wait for them, because I'm putting them under pressure, and that's not fair. So I'm going to engage with somebody in the audience. Yeah? Who here said that they were a high I or a yellow person in the last session? Apart from our speakers. Right, hello, what's your name?
Eleanor.
Hello, Eleanor. Oh, I can tell. Wow, I felt it. Okay. Influencing, then. You said you were an influential person, a yellow?
I started saying that and I was like,
Okay.
situations recently that I was like,
So what is your natural influencing style, would you say? How do you get people to come around to your perspective?
well, I am a people's person, so
Right.
the interest, so when you were saying about it's about me, that's where I was like, wait a second, maybe that's not my type, because I'm actually more interested in others, but I am very like, you know,
Yeah.
so, yeah, just being interested in others and asking others questions.
Ah, now that's the key. There is something interesting there. You see, if you really want to understand the principles, the basics of influencing, there are two basic forms of influencing. One is called push, and one is called pull. And if you want to pull someone with you, ask questions. Engage with them. Let me just put you into a state of thinking about this for just a moment. If you wanted to persuade me or influence me to come to your favorite restaurant with you this evening, it's a long time since I had an offer like that, but never mind. Let's pretend we could. If you wanted to influence me to come to your favorite restaurant this evening, just ask yourself this question. How would you do it? Yeah? Some people would say, hey, do you like going out to eat? Do you like Chinese? Do you like whatever kind of cuisine it is? That's called pull influence. Some people might say, hey, I really recommend that you come to my favorite restaurant. The reason I think we should go there is because they do this, they do that, they do the other. They're both legitimate forms of influencing, yeah? But one is called push and one is called pull. So if you want to be an all-round influencer, start to ask yourself, what is my natural style? Think about your behavioral style that Vicky was talking about, and then start to say, yeah, if I'm trying to persuade or influence somebody to come along with me, what's my natural approach? Would I question and pull and engage? Or would I push and say, hey, you're coming with me. This is the way we're going to do it. Yeah? Both are legitimate. There's no right or wrong. This is the thing that we three love about all of this stuff. There is no right, there is no wrong. There's just self-awareness. Okay. Now, it seems to me that we have got back on track, which is great news. So I'm just going to whiz through. You see all these lovely slides that you missed? Never mind. But it doesn't really matter because we're now back on where we should be. Now then, I'm going to say, look, where were we? Well, we'd just reached the point where we'd said there is an argument for saying that Roger Payne could have influenced through scientific rationale, but but he chose not to. He chose to use emotion and the heart. Now, on the screen here, you can see something quite famous. I'm actually going to sit down a moment and get out of everybody's way. You may be familiar with this. You may not be. If you are, great. And if you're not, well, here's something to learn. This is a very famous test. It's called the runaway trolley test in America. We'll call it the runaway train test. Now, what you've got here is a tram or a trolley that's running towards these people on the track. You can see them there, 5 people, and they're in a bit of peril, aren't they? Now, you are the person who's got hold of the lever at the sidings there. That's you, holding that big lever, the power in your hands. Now, you can see here that if you pull that lever, you're going to divert that trolley or that train or that tram, and it's going to go into the siding, and it's going to run over the one person who's in the siding, lying on the track in the siding. So, here is the question. How many people in this room, and obviously hello everyone online, but we can't take your view, but please play along. How many people in this room would say, I would pull that lever, I would save the 4 lives and sacrifice the 1 life? How many people would pull that lever? Yeah. Logically, it's the right choice, is it not? Yeah. And the majority of people have put their hands up. Okay, so there we have a rational decision. Now, then we come to this situation. Now, the trolley is still running down the hill. The 5 people are still on the track, but this time there's no lever. You're on a bridge, and you're standing on that bridge next to, shall we say, a rather large chap. Now, if you physically push that guy off the bridge, yeah, stick with me here, folks. If you push that guy off the bridge, he is large enough to stop that trolley. The 5 people will be saved, and you will have sacrificed the guy on the bridge. How many of you would still be prepared to push the guy off the bridge? Now, I can see by the looks on some of your faces, I'm not going to make you put your hands up because I don't want to make you feel bad about this, but I can see the body language. Remember what Vicky said, read the body language? Yeah, I can absolutely see that you're now having a bit of a moral dilemma, but you see the point I'm making. If we are going to make decisions in life, decisions in business, it's likely that at some point there is always going to be not just a rational argument for this, but there's going to be an emotional one as well. Rationally, the guy's going to jump down himself. You can encourage him. You're a good influencer, sir. Persuade him to jump. Just don't go and work for the Samaritans. Okay. So absolutely, the scenario is the same in the first and the second. Logically, you will save 4 lives and sacrifice a life. But in the second one, when we are more physically connected, when we are actually feeling the person that we're going to send to their doom, rather than just dissociatedly pull a lever, it's different. So if we think back to what Jenna was talking about in the way that we make pictures to people, when we can make that human connection, when we can actually help people touch and feel the decision, different dynamics come into play. That's exactly what Roger Payne, the father of whale song, understood. He didn't try and influence wholly by the science. That was a given. The science was there. Everyone knew he was a scientist. They knew he was an expert. What he had to do was connect. That's the principle here. So those scenarios, exactly the same. Emotions will always play a part, very easily. Now back to technology. You may well have heard these words before. Tim Berners-Lee, the father of the internet, uttered these very words. Isn't it interesting? The man who actually gave us a lot of the concepts that is probably sitting in our pockets at this very moment said actually what was more important was not the fact that we discovered the tech or understood how it worked, but the fact that we actually had to sell the idea to other people. Just imagine if Tim Berners-Lee had not thought like that, and he'd gone into his various meetings back then with lots of files and data, and those graphs that Jenna was talking about with all those pie charts and all those columns. We might be sitting here now with a mobile phone the size of a shed on our ears. Just think about that. Just because the guy understood that actually it's not what I'm selling that matters, it's the way I'm influencing that counts. Very interesting. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, that's fine. I get your ideas so far, Mark. I get your argument, but how can you do something about this? What can I learn? Well, here's a little bit of data for you, because that's important, because I like data. I might be dominant and influential, but I like to back it up with a bit of science. So part of what my company does is that we are researchers. And amongst some of the research that we've done over the last few years is that we have researched the belief systems of successful leaders, successful influencers. Now, you're having a look at that slide there, and it doesn't take a genius to work out that one of the belief systems that we have on that slide there is influencing. I'll get out of the way now so you can see the slide. All right, so one of the beliefs there is influencing. So what did we learn when we researched successful leadership about the way they regard influence? Well, bear with me a moment, because this is my most complicated slide, and I'm well aware of it, but please just take a moment to absorb it, and then I'll explain a little bit about it, because this one is a little more data heavy. So what you see at the top of the slide is what we call in my trade a destination belief. In other words, when we worked with over 1,000 leaders in 17 different countries and 11 different vertical markets, every time we asked leaders about their attitude or beliefs about influence, this is the kind of thing they said. Influence as a leader is about making things happen through other people. Influence is about making things happen through other people. But when you asked leaders a little bit more, well, how do you do that? How do you work through other people? What do you do? The answers were much more down towards the bottom of the screen there. Let's explore those. These are what we call journey motivators. They're sub-beliefs. And as I share these with you, I'd like you to think about trying those beliefs on for yourselves. To what extent do they resonate with me? So here's journey motivator number 1. I'm going to shut up and let you read it. Now, what you've got there is a perfectly legitimate view of how to influence. If you look at that and you think about the technology world, the world of process, the world of correct and rational, this is exactly what you'd expect. Any self-respecting technology function would absolutely make sure that you had and adhered to well-defined structures, well-defined processes, and all that kind of good stuff. You would be mad not to have it. Yeah? Especially with all the rigor that we now have to put around all the technology that we use and privacy and all of the good stuff that we all know about. And of course, the AI world coming in at us down at a pace down the track. All these things going on. You'd expect leaders to believe this. So how many people in the room would say, yeah, I hold that belief, that's fair? Give me a show of hands. How many people would agree that it's important to have well-defined processes and structures in order to be successful? Yeah, a lot of you. Yeah, of course. I'd be amazed if somebody said, well, I believe in chaos. But, yeah. What you would say, you flap your wings and something happens around the world, a chaos theory. Well, here's journey motivator number 2. Have a look at that one. Now here, you're getting towards what Roger Payne understood. You're getting towards the heart. the emotion. And if you think about what Jenna and what Vicky was saying earlier in their various ways, what they were both saying was it's important to actually understand that some people want a bit of the process and some people don't, and some people want some emotion and some people don't, and they want a little bit of data, but they also want the big sort of sell. So what our research showed us in many respects was that successful leaders get this. In other words, successful leaders are emotionally intelligent and can flex. Now, what we did in our research in all of these beliefs, and by the way, if you want all the data, it's available in the Leader's Secret Code, available from all good bookstores and obviously online. But as a serious note for just a moment, what we did was we allocated points, 20 points. Of all those beliefs that I showed you a few minutes ago, this was the one belief where successful leaders absolutely held these two beliefs in equilibrium. They weren't mutually exclusive. Every successful leader said it's important to be transactional and influence with that understanding, expectations, process, rigor, but it's also important to attach the emotion, the encouragement, the heart, and the soul. So my challenge would be, everybody watching online today, everybody in the room today, to what extent might you actually favor one belief or the other? I work with lots of leaders who will say, well, it's important, you've got to be a great leader today, and you've got to engage with your people and motivate them and all this kind of stuff, and they forget about the rigor. And then you'll work with leaders who say, well, forget the rigor, I run a successful business because I'm in control and my people know what my expectations are. And then they wonder why the people leave. But there is the proof. The person who has the greatest flexibility in thinking and behavior will be the most influential. That is my belief, and I think the data backs it up. The person who displays the greatest flexibility in thinking and behavior will be the most influential.
So is that the concept of servant leadership?
Yes. And absolutely right. I'd love to spend the time on it. Well, let's talk about it afterwards. You're right. In other words, if you want to create followership, if you want to be what we these days call a human-centered leader, which is what we know is successful, especially with the generations coming through, you've got to have the pair. Yeah. So, what did Roger Payne have? He had a purpose and he had a passion. In your world, in the world in which you operate today, what is your sense of purpose? What is your passion? If you wanted to be truly influential, I think we heard the C word earlier on, confidence. Confidence. Unless you have a clear idea of your purpose, you will not come across as confident. Unless you are really fired up passionately about who you are and what you do, and more important, why you do what you do, you will not be as influential as you otherwise could be. Simple example. I could easily say to you at a dinner party, we'd never met for the first time, and Christy says to me, "Hi, Mark, what do you do?" And I say, well, I run a training company, and we sort of, work with people. We like to help, we'd like to think they get a bit better at what they do. And Christy goes, well, that's nice. Thanks very much. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Whereas if she says, Christy, what do I do? I'm going to make this up, Christy, so it might not be my best work ever, but bear with me on this. If I say something like, well, thank you very much for asking. I have had the good fortune to work with some of the most important, influential leaders of our time, and I can help other people operate and think and believe in the same way they do, so that everybody has access to the very successful skills and mindsets and behaviors that some of the best people in the world have got. I made that up, by the way. You can tell I was a marketeer, can't you? But the point is that I truly believe that with my heart and my soul. Purpose and passion. That's what Roger Payne had. That's what people in our world like, dare I say, Steve Jobs had. That's what Bill Gates has. It's probably what Elon Musk has. Let's take the personalities out of all of this. Those people who seem to succeed and are influential do have that purpose and passion. This guy, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, said it like this: I'm going to let you read. What he was basically saying there is that if we want to be influential, we have to really understand what it is we contribute within our business. We may come from a technology world. We may understand what it does. But what is our vision for what we are doing for that business that we're in, the enterprise that we're in? How are we making a difference? And I often say to people who say, well, you know, I'm working in a particular function, I would say, you know what? Don't do yourselves down. Answer this question. What would it be like if you or your function was not there? What would not happen? Because very often, if we don't help other people understand the value of what we bring, if we don't do that, how are they going to understand it? So it's really important that we understand what our vision is for what it is we do, the value that we bring. Theodore Levitt was a famous Harvard economist, and he famously wrote, look, at the end of the day, if you want to run a successful business, you have to understand people are not buying 3/4-inch drills, they're buying a 3/4-inch hole. Yeah? They don't buy the drill for the sake of the drill, they buy the drill because of what it delivers for them. The value is the hole, it's not the drill. But, as Jenna pointed out before, how often do some of us go into pitches where we're sort of saying, hey, look at my drill, isn't it shiny, isn't it great? Yeah, isn't it fantastic? Look at this widget. And it revolves at 36,000 RPM, and the person at the end is going, oh yeah, but what size hole will it make me? Yeah, that is the key. That is the key to this. Again, think of Roger Payne. He understood. It wasn't the data of the whales that he was actually pitching that made him influential. It was what it did for people when they connected. That's what made him influential. That's when he had that vision. If I were to ask any single one of you, and I'm not going to do this because this does sometimes take thought, what is your personal purpose? What is your personal passion? To put it in a very simple way, what is it that actually gets you out of bed in the morning, gets you to your place of work or whatever it is, and actually makes your heart sing? Mine is making a difference. It's just, that's what I enjoy. But what is yours and why? Because if I were to meet you in the corridor down there afterwards and I were to say to you, hey, so what do you do? What I don't want to hear is, well, I'm a technology expert or whatever. That's a low level of influence, as we call it. No, I want to understand why you do what you do. Think like Roger Payne. And you too could have influence that extends not only beyond the grave, as it is now for him, but that LP, that recording that we talked about, that is on that spacecraft. I think it's Voyager 2. He's out there in the stars. It's incredible to think the influence that that man had simply because he understood that it wasn't about data, it was about the heart. So what I have tried to share with you over the last few minutes really are three key ideas. If you want to influence people, if you want to be seen as somebody when they say, I wonder what Christy would say. I wonder what, Christiana, I picked similar names, would do. Or I wonder what Vanessa would feel. That is influence. How are you going to make that happen for you? Be the example of what you believe. Be the example of what you believe. Change comes through the heart. The second thing, flexibility. I hope I've demonstrated that I am not sitting here saying, I want you to be a different person. Yeah? And that's what I hope you heard from Jenna and from Vicky. What we have said, our core message this afternoon has been no. Be a more rounded person. Be a more authentic person who can flex to meet the needs of others, not the needs of yourself. The greatest flexibility in thinking and behavior means that you will be most influential. And finally, have a purpose and have a passion. Because if you have that, your authenticity and your influencing power shines through. Now, as I come towards the end of my time, you might be sitting there thinking, well, okay, that's fine, but I'm successful. You know, I don't have to change. I'm already good at what I do. And you probably are. But my challenge is this. What would it be like if you did try some of these ideas on? What would it be like if you did? That takes effort. That takes a bit of exercise of the most interesting muscle in the whole human body, which is the brain. It is a muscle. Many of us just don't use it often enough. So I'm going to leave you with one final thought, one final story, as I encourage you to try on some of these thoughts that I've shared with you. The story goes that a man checked into a hotel for the very first time in his life. And he was given the key to his room, and off he went up to the 7th floor or wherever it was. And 5 minutes later, the telephone at the reception desk rang. The receptionist answered the phone. Hello, can I help you? Yes, it's me. I was just down in reception. I can't get out of my room. The receptionist said, Sir, that is ridiculous. Have you tried the door? The man said, well, I tried a door. I walked through a door, but it was a bathroom on the other side. It wasn't the way out. The receptionist was getting a little bit exasperated by this point and said, that is ridiculous, sir. There must be a door. Is there another door? The man said, well, yes, there is another door. I opened it, but it was a wardrobe. Still no way out. By now, the receptionist is getting really quite frustrated. Sir, this has got to stop. There must be another door. Silence. And then a voice said, well, there is another door, but it has a sign hanging on the handle saying, do not disturb. And with that, I thank you for your attention. I thank you for bearing with me as my technology died around me, but we seem to recover. And I hope that the three of us this afternoon have just given you a little bit of food for thought. And go out in there and be the influencer that we all know that we all can be. Thank you very much.
Can we give another round of applause to Mark for dealing with extenuating circumstances? Well done. We're just going to do a quick tech transfer, and then I'm going to invite Stuart and Winnie up for a quick panel discussion, if that's okay. So just bear with us.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Delighted to be here. So I run the customer success team for Sugar in EMEA. So it's my team's job to make sure customers of ours get value from the products they use and that they renew their subscription licenses with us and expand what they're doing. So most of my day is taken up with talking to customers in multiple different languages and trying to understand what problems they are trying to solve.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. My name is Winnie Palmer. I head up marketing for Seismic. It's a software company. If you think about sales enablement these days, what people say is about automating a lot of processes, content, and data to help your go-to-market teams to be more successful, and that's the business I'm in. In my spare time, I'm also an investor in 4 startups now, on the commercial board of one. I'm also on the board of a UK regulator in the telecommunication space. I was a coder long time ago. My first job was an analyst before there was this manual interface where you can select things. I used to write codes. So I sort of like gone through the journey, and so hopefully I've got some experience and lesson learned I can share with you today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Winnie. So we've discussed a little bit about some of the challenges, and that's with people who work with fantastic tech, have fantastic ideas, and how we can engage with stakeholders and people within the organisation. And you both work within IT organisations and decision makers. So if I start off with you, Winnie, perhaps, what do some of these proposals look like that may be a barrier to you as a senior executive saying yes or no to a technical proposal?
Talking about the barriers, I'm one of the I's, so I do get quite frustrated when I have a book landing on my desk talking about all the details, because actually for executives, I would expect that's your responsibility to take care of all those details. I'm here to speak with you at a strategy level, so talk to me about business outcomes. Talk to me how that impacts on, for example, customer experience, employee experience, if you talk about workplace, technology and architecture. How does that enhance our productivity? For example, if you say, oh, our data is sitting in different places, of course you can sort it out. But just come and tell me how your initiative is going to help the organization to be better, faster, and or maybe cheaper, offering better experience for other people. So really it's that kind of a conversation where we have a handshake between my expertise as a running the business and your expertise in running the infrastructure.
Fantastic, thank you. Stuart, do you want to build on that and perhaps any examples that you have experienced where this hasn't worked? We're not here to kick you all, by the way, and those online. We're here to demonstrate.
So I think one of the things that you heard about, particularly talking about the whale song, is understanding the emotional element of people and how they make decisions. And it's an old truism that people buy with emotion and justify with logic. And I think the best proposals do that storytelling piece and sell a vision that we've heard about earlier. If you miss that and you focus purely on the detail or on the data, then unless you're talking to, it's the disc stuff, understand who you're talking to and what their drivers are. And if you're talking to a group of people, make sure you understand beforehand the likely group of people that you're talking to and the type of individuals that you're interacting with. And understand who the key decision maker really is. There may be a committee, but ultimately there's normally one person who gives it the Caesar thumbs up or thumbs down. And really that's the person that you've got to try and convince and try and understand what type of person that individual is and focus your message to those key people, because you won't be able to please all of the people all of the time. So it's really hard when you've got a group of people to cover all of the bases. And I think you're probably setting the bar a bit high if you think that you can do that in one go. So preparation is really key. I think understand the audience that your message is being delivered to and focus on the people that you think can make the decision.
Ben, you wanted controversy, right? So can I...
Well, please, Winnie, if you would like to issue some controversy.
Adding on to that, not necessarily controversial, but one thing I have found, just when I used to be the person who put proposal to the leadership, is that I never have big conversations in the room. I have the conversation before. So it's so important to find all the stakeholders, I was talking about here, but try to build the momentum the tricky conversation needs to be handled delicately, in person, ideally, if not one-to-one, just so you can ask questions. Somebody's talked before, how you influence your stakeholders, understand where they're coming from, and you need to do your research. That communication part, the practice Jenna was talking about, is actually a piece of work itself. So if you think about your whole journey, building your proposal, and then communicating, socializing that, make that a piece of work, a project to manage. And then when you get to the room, the big day, if you like, you already build the momentum. So it should be as simple as, hi, we all agree with that. We have some qualification questions. Can you please elaborate a little bit more on that? And that's it. Now, never bring the big topic to a board meeting because that's not the right forum.
Thank you. And for the dozens in the room and the hundreds online, who have the best ideas in the business, there's no doubt about it, yeah? We have the best ideas. What's the cost to the business? And what I mean by that is the cost of some of those good ideas being lost by senior executives and therefore not being implemented. Do you see that as a cost, and where does that sit?
I think that's getting the idea and selling the vision across, because if people don't understand the cost of not adopting what you're doing, if you don't get that across in the story that you're telling, then people won't perceive that they've missed an opportunity. You're only aware of the opportunity that you've missed if you actually understand what the outcome is likely to be. So, most executives are expected to make decisions with lots of data, but make them quickly. So, and they make a decision and often move on, because that's the pace of business that they're operating with. So they often don't look in the rearview mirror and think about what they didn't get. They focus on what they have done. So I would say most often people don't appreciate the cost of not implementing the idea because they've forgotten it. They've gone past it.
What about yourself, Winnie?
I think for executives, one of the key challenges, if you like, is losing that visibility of what's happening actually in the organization. So a lot of the times the concerns, if you think about this empathetically, the person you are talking to actually has this fear that I don't have enough information to make the right decision. So they do want to know the story. They do want to know the impact. And the implication of getting it wrong is substantial. These are executives, board members, directors. They have got this responsibility. If anything was to go wrong, some of them might go to jail. The implication is pretty substantial for them. So, and if you think about these days, the technology, the impact of technology and actually deployment of technology is fundamental for pretty much the business sustainability. Right? Everything from customer experience to product to your information security. If you get it wrong, it can be quite disastrous. So a lot of the boards now have got risk and audit committee looking at IT specifically, just for that very reason. So you have actually a window, actually, an agenda. Is a standing agenda. Is a attention and priority, that's for sure. So we can't really get it wrong, I think, at that level. But the point there is that, again, going back to what we talked before, is doing that socializing and the workshopping, maybe talk to your finance directors to get their support as well. And we'll go talk to your line of business to understand the implications of your proposal. Most often than not, you'll find even more reasons and justifications for why your initiatives are actually quite critical. I can give you an example. I was on the board of a university, and we were looking at 10 years digital strategy, and the CIO at the time was able to provide the board with not even a document, like digital document. He actually printed out double-sided A3 papers and they give it to everybody. And on that A3 paper, both sides, he has the vision, he has the milestones, he has workflows, quite clear project management or roadmap. And he has a very big shining $2 million attached to it. And showing, if you don't give me this one goes, this one goes, this one goes. That kind of analysis and options. So the executives have options. If I was to give you that 2 million, I get X, Y, Z. But if I don't have that 2 million, I have 1.5, I can probably choose this one. But we know that gap there needs to be mitigated one way or the other. So that's the other way potentially to bring the initiative to the executives in a constructive manner so people can make choices.
So you've begun to answer my next question. Being a senior executive that you are, you've already predicted what my next question would have been. So for me, the follow-up question, and for yourself, Stuart, is what about you? What does good look like to you? What engages you and your team when someone's coming to you with an idea?
I think you've heard a lot of it this afternoon, but the first thing I think is explain how what you're proposing links to what the business is trying to achieve. So there has to be something behind what you're saying that links to something that I, as an executive or the leadership of a business, are passionate about or want to achieve. If it's not linked to something they've already got in their vision, you need to explain why your idea has a higher priority than something that they've already considered. So, good is linked to business outcomes that I'm aware of, that I'm already supportive of. So tell me how you're going to help me make success of whatever it is that we're looking to do. Grow the business, be more efficient, cut costs, drive more revenue. Whatever the area of the business that we're focused on at that moment in time, tell me how your idea is going to make an improvement. And tell the story, tell the vision.
How do they know? How do they know what's important to you, Stuart?
Well, hopefully good leadership would be make it transparently clear to people in the business what we're trying to achieve. So, if you don't know what your business you're operating in is trying to achieve, then I would suggest that's probably a problem of your leadership, not being clear. Sorry for all leaders out there. You need, if you don't understand, ask questions. If you've got it, this comes to the socialising the idea. I've got a great idea. How do I share that with people and understand whether it's got a chance of flying or not? Well, go and have a conversation with someone. Try and find time with someone to say, I've got this great idea. I don't quite know where it fits. I need a bit of help. Can somebody give me some coaching to know whether this is going to fly or not? But link it to outcomes of the business. That's the first thing, because then you've already got my attention, because you're thinking in the way that I'm thinking. We're all trying to achieve a common goal.
And that one, can I just pick up on that? I don't know how this fits. It's a great question, because most often than not, the person you're speaking to doesn't, or the people you speak to don't need to understand all the details. But what they need to understand is your thought process. So explain to them why you think this way, why this is important. That itself is so much more important than this is my drill. I don't know, even I don't even understand the technicality that you were explaining to me before. I know the size of the hole, but that's about it. But how important it is for you is sometimes not relevant to your audience. But if you just explain, this is why I think about it this way. Can you help me to understand where does this fit? And that just creates a safe environment for people to have a dialogue. You don't want to talk at people, right? So it's definitely ask the questions, understanding a little bit more where your stuff fits within the overall picture.
And if you get a leader to talk about what they're trying to achieve in the business, they're talking about themselves. And people quite like doing that, as we heard earlier. So, if you can, by asking a question to say, I've got an idea, help me understand where it fits in the business, you're actually giving them some ownership of the idea as well, because you're giving them something that they're then taking forward. So then I'm invested in this idea too. They might actually take the credit for it as well, be aware of that. But, that's life. But, if you can use that emotional bit, get people to buy into the idea by asking questions, by being a little vulnerable at times, not saying I've got a great idea and I've got all of the answers, all you need to do is say yes. Well, I haven't bought into that and I've got no engagement with it right now. So if you can make somebody else feel part of the solution, you're much more likely to get them to agree.
And when it comes to formal presentation, let's say if you have half an hour slot to present to the executives, I often will recommend that you prepare for 20 minutes, right? Because your first 5 minutes, not only to introduce yourself and your thought process, but also to agree on the agenda. And sometimes, often I see people forget about it, and that's a very, very impactful step. Just by saying, hi, I'm Winnie Palmer, I'm here today because, I have the opportunity to look at this thing for the reason X, Y, Z. I'm going to cover topic A, B, C. Is there anything else you would like me to talk about? that question engage your audience straight away and pause. Let them think about it, and silence is fine. Silence is gold. Everybody is okay with your content. You have obtained a license to proceed with your presentation. That moment is very, very important. And then don't use the whole 25 minutes remaining, but allow time for Q&A, because that's where the real conversation happens. Real decision happens when you have a dialogue, not when you're talking at them. And for that 20 minutes content, I would say, if you can, 8 slides maximum, 5 ideally. Sometimes I do 4, because for each of the slides, you can go into one key topic, and that's it. You might have a proposal, you have a problem statement you want to address, but there will be 3 or 4 specific discussion point that you want to close, and that's it. You don't want to do more than that, because otherwise it just becomes too chaotic to manage.
Fantastic. So, in the spirit of hopefully not having silence is golden, we're going to open up to our audience here in London. Has anyone got any questions for Stuart and Winnie and some of your challenges? Please, sir.
Just a more general question. It's regarding negative emotion. So, and how impactful that can be, where you're saying, if you don't do this, this is the end result. How effective is that, and what's your view on, is it worth using, or is it something to, just your comments around that as well?
1 second. For those online, I'm going to do the bit, so we just the question around, sorry if I'm paraphrasing as well, I won't get it exactly right, but using the negative emotion, what happens if we don't do this, how powerful that can be in those pitches. Winnie, did you want to?
You guys are looking at me. Okay, I would use it as a tactic sometimes to press on a weakness, but I always like to bring the conversation and the mood back to something positive, because you don't want to scare your audience off and then switch off. So you can press it a little bit. So, if this doesn't happen, we potentially could lose yada yada yada. Whatever you can quantify it. It becomes quite shiny and scary. But you gotta offer a solution. So if you point to a problem, offer a solution, ideally a set of solutions, so people can see, as we were saying before, they can think through, okay, if that is the implication, I've got option A, B, C. If it's A, then the implication is such. If it's a B, is such. C is such. By the way, me, whoever, what I think my solution would be, I prefer this one, I'll recommend. So you show all the scenarios, and that's usually very, very powerful way to manage all the potential objections, because you lay it all out and you put it on paper. You could probably think about this way, and therefore the result will be this, and therefore we recommend this one because X, Y, Z. That's sort of like one pager, and hence I say, 4 or 5 slides requires some thinking, right? The discussion, and that kind of analysis is usually very useful.
I think it's about context as well. So if what you're doing is something to do with compliance or security, then absolutely most of the decision is likely to be based on avoiding bad things from happening. So it's about the context of what it is you're talking about. But generally, people want to hear a positive message rather than a risk-based message. But think about the context of what it is that you're trying to get across the line.
Fantastic. I've got a question from one of our online listeners. I'm going to direct this at you, Stuart. No particular reason, I can assure you. The question is, my main issue is getting the budget holders to approve, basically getting buy-in. I can do nice presentations, but it's when they asked for the costs, this is when they go silent. What's happening there, do you think?
I think so. Nobody ever goes to, very few people outside of procurement get taught how to spend money or even how to go through a process of spending money in a company. CFOs don't want people having ideas and spending money because they go through a budgeting process at the beginning of the year. This is what we're going to earn, this is what we're going to spend, this is how much profit or loss we're going to make as a result of that. So if you've come to them with an unexpected idea, then they've got to, in their mind, the finance people, in their mind, they've got to find a budget somewhere or not spend money on something that they thought they were going to spend money on. So I think it comes, to a degree, it comes back to what when he was talking about before about preparing the ground, so socialising, for want of a better expression, the idea. Go and try and find out what has already been budgeted for and if there is any budget left. Because understand that's a competition and you've got to try and elevate what you're pitching above the competition so that the finance person will spend the money.
Adding on to that, so I'm in the sales enablement industry and we do a lot of selling, and Steve and there probably can tell you more about the selling process. But a lot of the time is finding an alignment between your initiative and the strategy that actually already have a budget assigned to. So when I started thinking about I want to sell a piece of sales enablement technology and then there's no strategy around sales enablement, there's no way a CFO is going to sign it off. But if I can attach sales enablement strategy to digital transformation, I know there's a call center manager, I know there's a team looking after that, there's a strategic alignment, I can go and talk to the digital transformation people and show the value assessment, alignment, then there's a conversation can be held. Or it's about skill gap. How do we onboard? How do we upscale? How do we rescale? How do we make sure our workforce fit for purpose for today's new digital world? That kind of conversation is very topical to business owners in the strategy. And then from the management standpoint, they have a specific agenda. So attach your project to an agenda as already opened. Gives you just so much more what's the right word for it? Just so much more like the natural alignment between what you want to achieve versus where the organization is actually investing in, right? So then your budget becomes an easier conversation because it's already budgeted for.
Did you want to come in?
Yeah, and finance people are typically pretty logical rather than emotional. So that's actually thinking about the type of person you're talking to. You probably need to justify with some data to a CFO. So they love to talk about return on investment. So start to try and speak their language if you can in terms of presenting the idea so that they understand what it is that the outcome's going to be in financial terms, because that's really what they'll be looking at. So, yeah, again, think about who you're talking to, think about the type of individual they are, and if you can, get other executives in the business to pitch the idea with you, for you, because they will have had a conversation, they will have had the battle for budget when they went through the planning process. So if it isn't in the budget for this year, you are in competition for that budget. Somebody's going to have to give something up in order for you to get your idea through. So try and understand what that landscape looks like as well, because who's going to miss out? Because you've got to try and convince somebody that actually your idea takes priority over something that may have been a sacred project for them that they're going to have to give up on for this year.
Fantastic. Questions from the room? Yes, please, madam. So for those online, the question, if I may paraphrase, is give an example of something that really stood out to you during a pitch process. Is that okay? Yep, fantastic. Guys, what's really stood out for you?
You guys always give me the difficult ones. Throw at me.
Yes, definitely.
I really would like to go back to the example I gave before about the university. At the time, I was actually in the finance committee, so we get proposals all the time. Not just IT proposals, but also marketing and different departments. And we only have one pot of gold, right? So the budget is set. Even I come from a marketing background. When that particular meeting I remember, because I talked to Heidi, the CMO there, and I knew very well what she needed. But her proposal didn't get approved. I could not help her, even I wanted to. I approved the budget to go to CIO because Heidi was talking to me about the metrics, about her department, about her function, about how this is going to drive student acquisition and all that, but she did not successfully link it back to the impact. And that's so important because a lot of this technical stuff, if I understood everything she was saying, I could not help her. Whereas the CIO was able to paint that picture very clearly, 10-year strategy, we're going to do this because it's going to deliver us right now a one campus vision. At the moment, we've got 3 campuses running 3 different systems. By synchronizing all these 3, we'll be able to save X percentage already straight away. Now, by reinvesting that budget, I don't want to give that budget back to you, by the way, dear board. I want to retain that budget, but I'm going to invest it in this one. And you can see the reason I invest in this one, because this one is in my project as a milestone number 3, which then will build into the future milestone 4 and 5, which supports our 10-year strategy as a one campus, superior student experience, yada, 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 right? So he is able to explain very clearly the value, not just today, in terms of the actual experience enhancement and the productivity, cost saving, but also how this builds the infrastructure momentum towards the next step. So I know in my mind, by investing in this, we can scale. Right, so for the board and management, we're not just looking at today, we're looking at, if we were to do this today, what's the implication for the future? Whereas Heidi's investment is transactional. She wanted $500,000 to be able to acquire students this year. That did not get signed off. When you compare this to infrastructure projects, one's infrastructure project, the other is more transactional. Of course, we need to be able to address today. But then at the back of the mind of all the board colleagues is that we probably can do that $500,000 stuff a different way without needing to invest anything, right? So just think through all these potential business implications. So sometimes it's not as grand 10-year strategy, but linking it back to what the strategy and specific business outcomes that your management is seeking to achieve now and perhaps a year time, 2 years time is very, very helpful sometimes for the executives to make decisions. Does that answer your question?
Thanks, Winnie. I've got another question from online. I'm going to direct it to Stuart. By the way, I'm looking at questions online, not the cricket scores. So there's a lot of talk in business about FOMO, evidently, fear of messing up. Do nothing is the lowest risk option. How can we overcome that challenge, Stuart? I feel I'm asking you the negative questions.
No, it's a good question because, you know, in many ways, if I don't make a decision, I'm not going to get fired. Because, you know, that's the easiest decision, as the question was, is no decision. So that's where the balance of risk and opportunity has to be presented, obviously, with the opportunity being greater than the risk. If the risk is too great, then I'm not going to make a positive decision. I'm not going to move forward with something. So present to me what the opportunity is and why we should be doing something. And it comes back to appealing to I've stressed it too many times, but it comes back to appealing to the emotion. You know, it's making me feel that I understand clearly what the opportunity is, what the outcome is, and the honest answer for most human beings is they think selfishly first. What's in it for me? What's this decision going to do for me?
You must be an I.
Well, no, yes, I am an I. But it's also true, you know, if I'm leading a business, it doesn't matter. Even your CEO has a boss. You know, it might be the shareholders, it might be the chairman, it might be a private investor, private equity. Everybody has a boss. And so, you know, at home, we have a boss. I do anyway. So I have to get the decisions past her. So, you know, so how am I going to sell that? You know, why do I need to buy another bike? Because N+1 is always important. You know, but the bottom line is, in order to get over no decision, you've got to have clarity on what the outcome's going to be. If there's no clarity on the outcome, a positive outcome, or avoiding a negative, people aren't going to make a decision because it's easier not to spend money, particularly in this climate today. Thank you.
Sorry.
That wasn't a sexist comment. Yeah, so basically you've got to appeal to the emotion, make sure people really understand what the outcome is going to be and sell that vision, because otherwise we will fall into the no decision trap.
You know what, the other thing to think about is you can actually engineer a momentum and make it a process, and the process then will drive a movement. You know, let me just make this more explicit. Yeah, it's something I observe because I'm in marketing. We build proposal all day long, and if the CFO says no all day long, so how do I do that? Sometimes it is about galvanizing the stakeholders and identify shared pain points. If you have enough momentum, enough people joining, take it as a process. So this is what I usually do. Let's say I need to have a new AI-guided recommendation engine, ChatGPT, to help me build marketing collaterals more easily. Right? How do I make that a proposal to my CFO and have it signed off? First of all, I do my research. What problem I'm solving? My problem at the moment is my localization agency is too slow, costing me too much money. So I go about the stakeholders to understand if people share the pain. Now, if there's no pain, then that's it, end of story. But if there is pain, then that's great. And then what I do is then start getting people to talk about it, document it all. And then I do a little bit of analysis on different options, the vendors, the costs, and do the analysis we talk about, option 1, 2, 3. But then there's enough talking, generating enough momentum. People started to see this could be actually a good idea. Right, and then you go through the cadence and find forums, and you can actually call for meetings, you can create projects, you can create, all these sort of things. If you have a cadence you put in people's diary, every week we want to talk about how to incorporate AI into our marketing operations to make things more productive and efficient. People come, and by the end of the quarter, you have a shining business case, right? And then you put it forward through the formal forum. There must be a forum where you can present to your superior, and maybe the superior can present it somewhere. There's usually a forum somewhere for information like this to flow upwards. At quarterly business review, for example, you can post that we have an issue with productivity, we have an issue with efficiency, and this is a potential solution. And then you generate that momentum and talking, and then suddenly that becomes something the business will have to look at because there's enough people talking about it.
I think the bit I missed was establishing a timeline as well. So no decision doesn't necessarily mean no decision forever, but it may mean no decision for a while. And I think it's establishing that urgency that a positive decision needs to be made. So if you can put some time benefit against something, then you're much more likely to avoid it being kicked down the road because we have other, as I said earlier, other priorities that are more important. So always think about urgency. If you can establish a sense of urgency, you're much more likely to avoid the no decision or a delayed decision, which is a no decision until it's a yes.
And find the budgeting cycle, because you would know your organization will have certain budgeting cycle in the cadence. Find the right timing, because sometimes if you miss the cycle and that's it, you have to wait for 3 months or so, or sometimes 6 months and even a year. So be careful and be familiar with the rhythms of your business. Your board meeting happens, maybe every quarter on the first week of the month. And therefore, actually, that exercise I just talked about probably need to start pretty much the quarter before, right? So you have time to go through the whole process. And by the right time, put it forward as an agenda item formally, and they get discussed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Winnie. We've got lots of questions, but we are running out of time. I'd like to finish on your point, Stuart. It's not a no, it's just not a yes yet. It feels to me like that's very much the way I look at things. Just want to say thank you, I think is the way I'd round up. So first of all, thank you to Stuart and Winnie and your contributions for this family. Thank you so much. I think it's also important if we keep the round of applause going for Jenna Dominique, for Vicky O'Farrell, and to the wonderful Mark Richards over there as well. Thank you very much. We'd like to extend our thanks to Growth Hub, who partners with us on this. And most of all, I'd like to thank you guys in the room for your contribution, your participation, your questions, your challenges. And thank you to our lovely audiences online. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Stick around for as long as you see fit. But thanks again for your participation today. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.